Welcome to the In Between podcast. Today I am chatting with Chelsea Markham, founder of Flurrie Wellness. Flurrie isn't just another electrolyte drink, it has caffeine, adaptogens like lion's mane and L-theanine, which help your brain to stay sharp and focused. Flurrie Wellness is a clean electrolyte brand for real energy. Chelsea, welcome to the In Between podcast.
Thanks, Cassidy. I'm so excited to be here today.
Me too. So I was trying to get Chelsea on the podcast. I think it was like season 1 or season 2. But Chelsea would not only birthing a business, she was having a baby at the same time. Isn't it like a couple days that both
It was
happened?
exactly 2 weeks. Yes, I had the baby, and then exactly 2 weeks later, we launched Flurrie. So it was a very hectic last month of pregnancy. The baby was also early. So technically, the supplement launched when I was 40 weeks pregnant, but I wasn't pregnant anymore because I had the baby. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Who, by the way, he is so cute. I love
Thank
watching your
you.
Instagram stories because he
Thank
is
you.
adorable.
He is.
I can't even imagine how you made that work. Like, you are ultimate woman to have all those things happening at once. Like, what was the chaos like? How are you managing it all?
You're so sweet. I honestly have no idea. I talked about this. I actually had this conversation with my therapist today because she's like, I think we have, like, I mean, as women, we struggle with not being enough. And that's something that's like very cognizant in my life. And so we were talking about that today, literally today, like a few hours ago. And she's like, well, like, what makes you feel that way? And I'm like, I don't know, because everyone says, like, wow, you're doing all these things and like you're so like achievement oriented and like how do you do it all? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but I need to be doing more, which is such a hard thing to battle. So it's so funny that you brought that up because I'm really trying to just like accept where I am and just take everything one day at a time because it is a lot to happen at one time for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I feel the same way sometimes. Like, I feel like I do so much. And then if I let myself maybe compare some of my life to someone like you who now has a kid and launched a business, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not doing enough because how is she able to do all of that? And I'm like doing half of it, it feels like. And so it's so hard when you're, I would say, perfectionist and achieve oriented, like you said, to just like breathe and accept that what you did was enough, no matter how much it was.
Right. And also just accept that is successful in its own. Like I look at you, I'm like, oh my gosh, she has this like amazing podcast. That's so cool. It's so professional. Like, I'm like, gosh, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, whoa, Chelsea, like check yourself. Like you need to
Yeah,
calm down.
don't even think that because I'm like, it's 11:55. Oh my gosh, I need to write the intro. Let me write it right as we're doing it. So I'm like, I love all these things because I'm like, man, it looks so perfect on the outside. But if you were a fly on the wall, it's like, oh my gosh, like transition. Now I need to be a podcast host. So yeah, it really is one of those things. Like when you're looking from the outside, everything is perfect, and it's probably just chaos on the inside. So I would
Yes.
love to hear what is the backstory to Flurry? Like, why did you start specifically an electrolyte company?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little background, I worked in the quick service industry for 10 years for a very popular fast food company. And I was GM, HR. I worked like 60 to 80-hour weeks. I was very busy all the time. We were like one of the first stores to have the highest grossing store in Los Angeles. This is when I lived in LA for a little bit. And I did all that and I noticed I was getting super burnt out. I tried a lot of different diets. You know, I was in my 20s, so I'm sure you can agree like there's a lot of different fads out there. You don't really know like what works for you or your body. I tried all these different workouts and I just constantly was feeling super burnt out, fatigued, overwhelmed, stressed, digestion issues, all those things. And then in 2020, when things kind of shut down, I still was working. However, I was like, this is not it for me. And the path that I was going with my career kind of took a little bit of a back seat and the door shut for me, which I found it to be a door opening somewhere else. And I was like, what is my life going to be? What is my career going to be? So it was kind of a defining moment at that time. And that's when I decided to go into nutrition. So in 2020, I got my first certification. I ended up doing a few more certifications after that. And I always wanted to create a product that was like something that I always thought about. And I've like thought I was going to do a vegan queso or tortilla soup, or there were all these like different food ideas. I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to like sell us a farmer's market. And like I did sell my tortilla soup like out of my apartment for a period of time in like 2021. It was really nuts. I don't even know if I was allowed to do that, but I did. And so I was like, gosh, it just nothing like stuck. Like, you know, when you have that idea and you're like, this is it. And I didn't feel super aligned with any of these ideas. So I just kept like meeting with clients and searching and figuring it out. And something that was very prevalent across the board was electrolytes. And minerals are so important for your body. And if we just continuously drink and chug water, we're actually going to flush out those minerals from our body. So we really need to replenish our body, let alone the water, obviously, that we're drinking is not the quality that it was years ago. So I always drank electrolytes. Everyone I know drank electrolytes. However, it was actually my husband one day was like, hey, gosh, it'd be really cool if there was an electrolyte with caffeine. And he's like an avid pre-workout drinker. He used to drink like all the crappy, sugary pre-workout drinks, energy drinks, all that above. And I always thought that too, because like I always am I mean, even now, I'm carrying like multiple beverages around all day long. So I'm like, gosh, it'd be so cool to have like one beverage that has like multiple benefits. So we're not just having to carry around all these packets and powders and liquids and all these things. So when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no electrolyte with caffeine that I've seen. And so that's when I kind of started doing research. And I was like, gosh, I don't know if I can do this on my own. That's like kind of a lot of work. But I was like, but that'd be so cool to have an electrolyte with caffeine that you could use any type of day up until afternoon, pre-workout, post-workout, recovery. And then as we were playing with the formula, that's when kind of the idea of the nootropics played into it as well. And we were like, let's make this like a 3-in-1. So
That
it's
is
a long version of
incredible.
how it started. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're so right. There isn't something like that out there. And nobody, people are like, okay, don't drink that afternoon coffee, like switch it for tea or
Yep.
something else. And I love that this is like light, refreshing, and an easily replaceable beverage for that afternoon, dip that you get.
Exactly. Yeah. I found a lot of people call it nature's Adderall. That's like a fun term that a
I
lot
love
of
it.
feedback that I'm getting. And I'll have people text me and they're like, I don't know. It just happened to me, but I just got like 3 hours of work done after drinking some Flurry because the cognitive function with the nootropics really give you that brain boost to like power through work. So I find a lot of people actually use it more for that as of recent versus for working out. I love using it for working out. However, I do have found that a lot of the use cases are more in the afternoons, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's cool because you can use it for both, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So
hmm
let's get a little bit into the science before we dive more into the business side. Why do we need electrolytes? I know you mentioned it a little bit, but why are electrolytes important versus just drinking water?
So basically, essential electrolytes like what are in Flurry, which is magnesium, potassium, and sodium, help regulate our hydration, which is what they're for, muscle function, nerve signaling, overall cellular balance, and cellular hydration, which is why we talk a lot about cellular hydration when it comes to Flurry. So they help us absorb and retain the water, preventing dehydration. So that's why when I say like, oh, we're going to just have these electrolytes, if we're drinking water, it's just going to flush out of our system. They help prevent that. So without them, the drinking plain water isn't going to be enough to replenish what's lost through like exercise, daily activities, sweat, so on and so forth. It also is really helpful for muscle function and recovery. So that's another reason why I drink electrolytes every single day. I absolutely love working out, but electrolytes like sodium, magnesium, potassium play a role in preventing cramps and also muscle contractions, which is really cool and a fun little tidbit. And then yes, Flurry has caffeine. However, you can receive an energy boost from just drinking electrolytes because they can, if you have imbalanced electrolytes, it can lead to brain fog, fatigue, sluggishness, like overall just like that blah feeling you sometimes feel, which I feel a lot as a mom and breastfeeding. Like I literally could not get enough electrolytes in my body. So it's really helpful in that use case as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, I've noticed a big difference because I work on a lot too in when I take electrolytes. And I actually figured it out when I was training for a marathon because was
Oh,
sweating so much. And I'm like, I hated Gatorade. It would just like completely destroy my gut. And I'm like, I need something because I'm sweating so much. And that's when I first found out about electrolytes. And then I started doing research. I was like, oh, like you can take these every day. You should be taking them every day. So I love that you've combined both. And then the brain aspect, which is huge too. Could you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. So we thought that, yes, the caffeine and the electrolytes are huge components of day-to-day life. But like, what if we could add something like a little more differentiating for what's on the market? And a lot of people take lion's mane or L-theanine in mixes on their own. So there's lion's mane in coffee. Sometimes there's L-theanine with like a magnesium mix before bedtime. So we chose these two for very specific reasons. So lion's mane is huge for cognitive function. So it stimulates the production of the nerve growth factor, NGF, which helps brain cell growth, repair, and overall cognitive function, and also enhances memory and focus, which is why I said earlier, a lot of people are using this for that like afternoon slump to get through the workday, because it really improves that mental clarity, which is so important sometimes when you're working on a big project or have a meeting or a podcast or something like that. And then the L-theanine promotes a little bit of that calmness. So, that's why you're not going to have that like jittery feeling, because we have that L-theanine kind of to combat that. And L-theanine also helps with focus and attention as well.
It's awesome. I know it definitely, I haven't tried it yet. I need to. And I'll
send you some. I don't know why I haven't. Send me your address.
No,
I'll send you some.
I literally, when you're talking about it, there's also something about just having a drink when you sit down to work. Like you go to you eat lunch and then you're like, okay, I'm going to focus. I need a drink. It's a girl thing, I think.
You need a thing. But you need something like a cute cup with a little straw and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Yes.
Literally. So it's like to have something that at the same time is going to help you get through your work and honestly probably make you more productive is so, so smart. So you guys just launched, how many months has it been?
September. So 5 months, almost. Not even 5 months. Yeah. Yeah. Same as the baby. I always think about that. Yeah. I know. I'm like, how old
That's crazy. And you had like a lot of positive feedback. People are loving it.
Yeah. So we're only online right now. The goal obviously is to get into retail later on, but we're just doing, D2C right now. So a lot of events locally as well. I think the big thing is people have a hard time buying something when they can't taste it. So that's why I love doing events, especially with our product currently that we're selling is just a 30 serving in a container. So really good for like at home. But then if you're like, oh, I have to travel, I want to take this with me, that's going to make it a little more challenging. So that's what we're working on right now, which is really exciting. So we're working on individual stick packs, which will be so much easier for people for sampling. I can send those out a lot easier to people to have them try it. So that's what we're working currently. But yeah, the feedback mostly is like I said, like Nature's Adderall really helps people get through. And then also like really helpful for those sweaty workouts, marathons, things like that, to really push you to that next level in all aspects of your day.
I love it. Is it flavored?
Yes, it's a lemon flavor. I personally, so it's a very muted flavor right now. I am actually going to change that because I personally add lemon juice into mine because I love lemon and I love the tartness of it. And so we're going to be changing it a tad bit just so that it has a little bit more of that like lemon flavor. It's so crazy to have to like test a product and be like, oh my gosh, is this the one that everyone's going to like? I don't know. Like it's so intense. So we did it. I was like, okay, this was good, but I now want to make it like a little bit more tart. So we're going to be adding some lemon juice components to it this next round.
Well, that's also so fun, but definitely a lot of pressure. And I was just going to go into kind of more of the business side of things because I think oftentimes, and you're one of these people, like we have these ideas and we're like, oh, this would make such a good business idea. I think it takes a special person to like actually take action on it and be like, I'm going to try to figure out how to do this, right? Especially when it's not your background. You didn't go to business school. You don't maybe know too many other people that have done it. Mm-hmm. So can you talk to me about the moment where your husband kind of comes up with that idea, you guys are talking about it, and then what is the moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to do this? Like, do you hop on Google? Like, how do you know what to do next?
Yeah, no, I get that question so much. They're like, well, how did you do this? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I did it, but like, I
figured it out.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you have to like really just go in with the risk knowing it couldn't work and like that's okay. And that's really scary for people. And it's still so new. It's still scary. But at the same time, like you just have to know that and just do it anyways and not let the fear like stop you from figuring it out, which I think happens to a lot of people who want to take that next step in creating something or building something, but then they're too fearful, so they'll never do it. But I've just always been like, no, I'm going to try it. Like I'm going to try everything. I've tried a lot of different things in the past few years of like being an entrepreneur. So with this same thing, like he told me that in my mind, I'm like, I love you so much, but I don't want to go into business with you. Like, you do your job, I'll do my job. We can be married, yay. But I was like, we're not, like, this is not going to be good for us. So I actually met with someone who was my co-founder for the first, like, year and a half. He has now stepped out of the business. I have a new co-founder. Crazy story. All's well though. And so I met up with him and we had worked together in the past. And I had shared with him the idea and he was kind of in between jobs. And he's like, hey, that sounds like really awesome. I would love to do that with you. And I kind of was shocked because I didn't share with him with the intention of him being interested. But we had a few conversations. He's like, no, that sounds so cool. There's nothing like that on the market. Like, I'd love to help you. Like, I've got some time right now. Like, let's do it. So that was kind of the moment I was like, oh, this is like really going to happen. Because I knew I wanted help with it just because I was like, I still have multiple jobs. Like, this is a big undertaking. And financially, like, two in one pot, like, we bootstrapped it. So that was also helpful. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. So that's kind of the moment. It was like, it was last September. So September 2023 when we met and kind of decided we would start it together.
That's awesome. I am also curious about the financial aspect because I think that gets away in the way of a lot of people too. Is like, okay, I have this idea. They do maybe some research. They realize, especially with something like you, I own a business as well, but I'm service based, so it's like
Right.
purely my work, product, a lot more money up front.
Yeah.
For like you said, we don't know what's going to
Right.
happen. So how did that work for you? Is that something that what were the different avenues that you could choose from, and then where to go from there?
Yeah. So we did decide to bootstrap it from the beginning. It still is fully bootstrapped, thankfully. I would
Incredible.
definitely, the bootstrapping is closed. So as my husband likes to tell me, he's like, the bootstrapping bank is closed for this. So we'll have to go through our next avenues, which there's a lot of other options that we're looking into this year for the future. However, yeah, to get started, the big things to purchase was like our marketing agency. That was like a pretty big expense, but obviously that's all of our branding, like the design for the packaging, the website, the photo shoot. So like we knew that was going to be a big cost up front, but like that's going to take us further. And then interviewing manufacturers, figuring out the cost of the product. So playing with the formula, lowering different things to make it obviously like more cost efficient, but also like really good premium ingredients and making sure we weren't compromising on any of those ingredients, which was like really big deal to me, which I'm happy to chat about as well. And then what are the other things that were kind of up front, like shipping boxes and stuff. So yeah, we opened a bank account. We kind of figured out like what's realistic for our budget. And then we went in. It wasn't an insane amount of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you definitely can do it with a lower amount. It was difficult, but like you can do it. You just got to find like the right people to work with, connections, things like that.
Yeah. And I think people who believe in what you're
Mhm.
creating is huge as well, because
Yes.
it's like if they believe in the mission, they're almost partnering with you in a way.
Right.
And so they're more willing to like, let's get this thing off the ground and figure it out when we get
Later.
there.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sure there's been a million and two, but as far as starting Flurry, like what has been the biggest in between for you in this adventure?
Yeah. So I would say it was, gosh, that's such a big question. So in regards to Flurry, I did have a couple times where, deciding on ingredients and stuff was really important to me just because I didn't want to produce a product that I wouldn't back myself, and having, multiple certifications in nutrition and working as a nutritional practitioner with clients, I knew that, ingredients were my number one concern. And that was something that was like, I went back and forth a lot about, because obviously like it does cost more money to have certain ingredients in, but that's not something I'm going to budge on. So I would say like in that space, that was challenging. I would say the transition that we had at the end of 2023 with transitioning out the co-founder and getting a new co-founder was a pretty in-between moment. I think, there's absolutely no bad blood, but it's a big undertaking. This is not something that happens overnight. For some people it does. If you're like a big influencer, you know how it is, like have a ton of financial backing. But for someone who's just like a regular gal who like has a mission and a purpose and really believes in the product, like it's gonna take a few years to get it off the ground, which I'm completely understanding of. And if I didn't know that, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would have given up. But that's not who I am. I understand, it's gonna take time. So I think that's not for everyone. The financial gain you receive from this is not anything yet. Like it's like I'm not taking any money from this right now. Everything's going back in the business, and I probably won't for a while. And that's also, I understand and recognize that I'm privileged to have that opportunity as well. So I think it definitely, you kind of have to decide like priority wise, like I'm willing to not take money from this to build it. And sometimes that works out for people's lifestyles and goals and dreams and everything, and sometimes it doesn't. So, that's something that you really have to decide. And that's an in-between moment, I would say, is just like really making that decision whether to, you can move forward with that and you believe enough in yourself and are passionate enough about it, or maybe you're not, which is totally fine and understandable because you have to have that passion in order to put as much work and sweat and tears and all those things into, what you're producing.
But no, I totally agree with everything that you're saying. And something I'd always told myself in my I own a social media marketing company is I'm like, the only way for me to fail is just to stop.
Yep.
Like completely stop what I'm doing, no forward motion. And even if it's bad or it's rocky or money's not coming in or I don't have the clients or I don't have the huge roster I wanted, like as long as I don't stop, I didn't quit, I didn't fail.
Yep.
And so I always think about being an entrepreneur in that way. And it is so hard because especially when you're making nothing, like what you're saying, right? Like you have to be fueled by something else other than your paycheck, yourself. Like you have to dig deep and figure out what you're fueled by every day because otherwise those things are going to be gone or you're not going to be getting them and you're going to have no reason to show up every day.
Yep, exactly. I think too, you have to have that like innate belief inside of yourself too. Like you have to truly believe in yourself or you'll just give up, like you're saying. Like you have to believe, like every day you're like, I can do this today. Like I can get up, I can send these emails, I can post on social, I can book this event. Like I can absolutely do this because it XYZ of why, that passion is. Like for me, I know that like helping people with their health is totally a driver for me. Like I absolutely get so jazzed up when people are like, oh my gosh, like, whether it's I'm working with them one-on-one and now obviously transitioning to them taking something and feeling better after, like that is such a huge joy to me. And I'm like, hey, if that was one person texting me today and they're like, I just took Flurrie, I feel like $1 million, like that's a paycheck to me. I had an old coworker that I worked with and he would call it a payday when like, one of his like team members, like, they had a really good conversation or he fixed a conflict or like someone thanked him for, some leadership lesson they learned. And he was like, oh, it was a payday today. And it wasn't even actually payday. It was just like that gratification of like, you're doing what you're called to do and like living in that and being aligned with that. And so I would say like those paydays for me are definitely like when people are like, oh my God, goodness, I got through this day or I crushed this quiz I had because I took Flurrie or, oh my gosh, my class went super great because I was able to be fueled by Flurrie. Like that is like a payday to me. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's working. People love it. That can drive me enough to wake up and do it again the next day.
Well, that mindset switch to payday because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it has nothing to do with money. It has
Right.
everything to do with like what you're providing for them and how they're responding to it. That's
Right.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things with being an entrepreneur, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, is taking care of yourself and all of that mindset stuff that we just talked about. If you're not taking care of yourself, it makes it much harder to choose those mindsets and to stay present in that moment. I know that probably out of any entrepreneur I know, you've had the most chaotic year, right? Like I can't even imagine trying to take care of yourself, trying to keep those mindsets in the middle of really your body changing so much with hormones and being postpartum. And so how have you managed to take care of yourself or prioritize yourself within baby, business, all the things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one, I really had to give myself grace and I still do. So like that is not a typical like self-care like thing like baths or, making sure I work out, which are all the things that I also try to do, but like giving myself grace and understanding where I'm at because I'm, you are, I'm sure, like very high achieving. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I should have been doing this today. I should have, sent out this email. I didn't post on Flurrie this week. What am I doing? I'm like, okay, your baby's 2 months old. Like most people are on maternity for 4 months plus. Like you launched a business 2 weeks after, like you are postpartum, you're not yourself because your hormones are so, dysregulated. And, I am grateful to be feeling a little bit more myself as of late, but I think just giving myself grace and knowing where I'm at is huge. And so as an entrepreneur, like every single day isn't going to be like the best day of your job. You're not going to have like a Monday through Friday every day where you're just like crushing it and you feel amazing. Like it's such a roller coaster as an entrepreneur. So giving yourself grace on the days where you're like, wow, I don't feel like I did like the most I could for my business, like that's going to happen even with a work day. Like if you were at a 9 to 5, like every single day isn't the best day you've ever worked, you know? So making sure you still carry that on as being your entrepreneur, which can feel so different since you're, you know, a body of one, you're just one person trying to do it. And then, yeah, as far as like the self-care goes, you know, giving myself grace and like, no, I don't work 9 to 5, you know, I'm not on all day and that's okay. That doesn't mean that, you know, my business is failing. That doesn't mean that I'm failing as an entrepreneur. Like my life looks different now than it did, you know, a year ago. And that's okay. And so just learning to adjust to that and understand that, you know, it not feel guilty about, oh my gosh, I didn't work 8 hours today. Like I don't have that opportunity right now. And that is okay. I'm going to do as much work as I can in the limited time I have. And that's great. And then the other hours, yes, like working out is something that's huge for me. Making time for that is very important. If that means like I didn't post a reel because the only free time I had was to go to a workout, I'm going to choose to go to a workout, because if I'm not mentally ready to be an entrepreneur, then my business isn't going to, like, that's not the best foot to put forward for my business anyways, if that makes sense. So, you know, really prioritizing making sure I'm in the best headspace during this time is super important. And obviously, like, yeah, the baby, there's nothing more important than that. So, you know, my time with him is super valuable and I'm super grateful to be home with him. And so, you know, managing this is a lot. We just hired our first nanny. I will admit it. It's very part-time. She's only here 6 hours a week, but those 6 hours are my 6 hours to pound this out. So hopefully you will see more Flurrie content, but I'll never sit here and be like, oh yeah, no, I can do this all. Like it takes a village. Like my mom's here today all day long. Like, so it really does take a village. And I think that's something too that, you know, people don't talk about. As I know this isn't a mom podcast, but I do think it's really important, because all I saw was people trying to do it, like doing it all. And I'm like, why does no one ever talk about like the help that they have? Because you do need help. You're not like a robot. And so I think it's important to be like super vulnerable and open with, you know, how you get things done every day, because I'm not like this crazy magician who can just like handle everything all day long.
Yes. No, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so true, and it allows other people who are moms, and whether you own a business or not, to like have that permission that like, hey, yeah, we all have the same hour day, but we don't utilize those hours the same, and we can't.
Right.
And the priorities are so different. And so to give other moms that permission to like show up for the time that they do have. And I love what you said about like, if I have the choice to post a reel for my business or work out, I'm going to choose to work out, because for me, it is important that I take care of myself. And I am just so passionate about that perspective, because I think so many times in the past, probably 10 years, like people would choose their business over anything. And now all those people are sick. Their businesses probably are doing great, but they're not well mentally or physically. And I think we've really saw this transition in the past like 2 to 5 years of like, stop, take care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, the business will grow in the time it's supposed to grow.
Yeah.
It's not on you.
And it wasn't even my business. It was my job. And I mean, I cared so much about my work that I put my health second, and it really showed. Like I said earlier, like I wasn't feeling great. I ran myself to the ground. Like I was very burnt out, fatigued, all those things. And so I'm like, and I always would do that. I would be like, oh, I can't work out today. I got to go to work, like crazy hours. So I think it's really important to understand, like, it's, yeah. Also this, like, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So it's going to be okay if I spend 45 minutes to go to a workout class, and I'll post a reel tomorrow or whatever it might be.
And it's all in the perspective too. Like for me, when you bring up time, and I don't work well in 8-hour, 9-hour stints of working, right? Like if I had an 8-hour, 9 to 5 job, like I would be miserable, because for me, like I do really well working in small, short spaces of time, and I can get more done. And that's one of the reasons that I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But when I first became an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, I need to clock in these 8 hours. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? And I have to be so mindful to switch my perspective of like, kind of what you were saying about your coworker about the payday stuff. Like I'm so blessed that I can choose to work maybe in the morning and then go see my sister and my nephews in the afternoon.
Yep.
And that's the pay, right? Like that's the return. And that's what I'm choosing.
Right.
And so it doesn't make me a better or worse entrepreneur because I'm not working my business the whole day and maybe I don't have as many things on my plate. It means that if something, God forbid, were to happen to me next week, I chose what was important to
Yep.
me, and I built a life around those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. That's so, so true. I also, I'm like, who, if you're, I mean, I did work a 9 to 5, not in the restaurant, but I worked at a tech company and I worked a 9 to 5, and I did not work 9 to 5. Like, I mean, it was long hours, I will say, and I was in the office, but they used to make fun of me because I would put snacks at my desk for people to come by and come talk to me. And they made me put the snacks away because they were like, hey, we need you to like be more focused, and you're attracting too many people to come chat with you because you have I was like, no, this is like my, like, we would do a lap.
Social
I was,
hours.
yeah, I was like, I need a lap. Like, I have to, like, like, I can't just sit here on my computer all day. And I still were like, I mean, I think I crushed it. I think he would say that. I was the CEO's assistant. But anyways, like, you need that time too to like kind of reset. And so, we do get to have that as entrepreneurs, which is really helpful, and it kind of helps our brain. Like, it's like a power hour. They talk about that all the time. If we can get, so many things done if we just stay focused in for an hour. But if, yeah, 9 to 5 is crazy.
Yeah, and it's giving yourself that permission too, I think, especially because I think a lot of times, especially as women, and you could talk more on this being a mother too, but like we're just taught that like, oh, we could do everything. We can do all these things and we could do it at a mile a minute. We have time for everything. And it's like, well, we also should have time to slow down, and we also should have time to like you be able to enjoy time with your son and not be stressed or feel guilty that you're not working on the business.
Right.
That should be able to coexist.
Yes. And that's a huge thing that I have to constantly remind myself is like, okay, yes, I'm having someone watch him for 3 hours, during the day. And like, yeah, I could go on the side, like on one side and be like, wow, I feel so guilty. Like someone else is watching my son. And I'm like, okay, but that's for 3 hours for me to get stuff done. He's playing, he's being interactive, he's doing milestones, like he's being taken care of. And then I have the whole rest of the day where I can focus on him because my space and my capacity in my brain is open, because I was able to get all of that done. And it's not just swirling around in my brain, and I'm not just like walking around all stressed, because those babies, they know. He knows. I'll be like, okay, it's time to go for a nap. Let's do this. Mommy's got a lot of work. And he's just like, no, nap. I know you have work, so I'm going to stay out because you have to play with me. So they really know. It's crazy.
He's reading you like, not time to work. It's time to play with me.
All the days where I'm like, no, I really need to get this done. It's so funny.
I need to get so much done. Are tools that you used as far as like maybe a mantra or journaling or mindset work? I know you said you go to therapy to keep yourself in check on days where maybe that guilt creeps in, or you feel like you should be doing more on either side, mom or business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a horrible journaling person. Like
Same. I do it for a day and I'm like, I'm a journaler. And
yeah,
then
I know.
Never did it.
Like film and get ready with me, and you're like journaling, and then I'm like, no, I've never done that. Yeah, that's just not me. Maybe one day, but it's not me. Something that I aspire to do, the sleeping schedule, I'm still figuring out. He's still waking up quite early. So when he wakes up at more like 6:37, my goal is to wake up a half hour early and just have a little bit of time to reset for the day. Right now I do that at night. So like the night before I go to bed, I personally just go through and figure out like my day and the next day, the schedule, like any calls I have, what to-dos I have in the times that he is napping, so that I have like that way in the morning I wake up, I am way more organized. And so that helps that stress and that like guilt on either side, because I know I'm dedicated time for the next day. And so that really helps me. I also have been practicing just slowing down in my day, and that doesn't necessarily mean I like cancel plans or like slow down in like what I'm doing, but actually physically slowing down. So like if I have like an hour to go to the grocery store because of XYZ, like I'm not like, oh my God, we have to go to the grocery store, like plop the baby in, run to the grocery store, hurry. Like I'm like, okay, this is your time for the grocery store. Let's just slow down. And I think that also helps just my overall anxiety in general, just to remind myself like I don't need to run a mile a minute, and it's okay if not everything gets done, and you just need to like take more notice of those little things and just like taking that time. So that really helps too. I'm not like the mantra thing. I should get better at that. I should just say breathe everywhere around my house. Just remember to.
I feel like you are doing the mantra of slowing down.
Yeah,
like,
that's like
that is so hard to do.
Yeah, so hard to do. And I run a mile a minute. So just remembering like, hi, like when I'm done with this call, I don't need to like rush out and like grab the bait. Like he's fine. Like I'm going to take a deep breath, slowly exit, like just slow it down a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I've been sitting down for 5 minutes. So like that's actually nearly impossible. Like or the worst is when like I have all the things set and then something comes in that's more priority and I'm like, how am I going to do all this? Instead of just being like, okay, well, this is now more priority. So I need to focus
Yeah.
on that one thing versus doing everything else. Are you someone that does a to-do list? And then like you mentioned planning your night before. So I assume it's some sort of to-do list. If those things are not done all at the end of the day, are you like freaking out? Do you make the list shorter on purpose? Like, how do you go about tasks?
No, I will leave it on, but I really do, for the most part, like I'm pretty cognizant now on like what I have capacity for. So I'm not like, and some days are busier than others, but then I'm like, okay, then you need to like carve out this time and do, X, Y, Z. So for the most part, I feel like I do get done those specific days. And sometimes things do roll over. I am one of those people though that like leaves the hardest task for last, which I know in all the
Me too.
productivity,
It's
like,
so bad.
all those workshops and stuff, everyone's like, no, you have to do that first. And I'm like, but I don't want to do that first. I want to do the easy ones first. So I'm trying to get better at that right now and just like knock that out, because usually in the mornings is when I have the most time anyways, first thing. And then that way the next night when I look it over, I'm like, oh, I already did that, yay, and I can finally cross it off the list.
I'm the same way. I'm like, then you get to that last thing and now you're tired and you don't
Yep.
want to do it. And you're like, I'll just do
Do
it
tomorrow,
tomorrow.
yeah.
And I'm like, I should.
Yeah.
I should have done it yesterday. Why did I do it?
And then you do it and you're like, that was so
it is so
easy.
stressful.
Yeah. You're like,
Yeah,
that
like
wasn't
when
hard.
it's all in your head. It's just
Mhm.
that it's like a longer task or something you didn't want to do. You're like, oh my gosh, please.
Yeah.
I think it can be so difficult to not manage time, but I think manage time inside my head of like the things I want to be doing, the things I need to be doing. Do you, as a business owner, have comparison or any sort of like trap that you put yourself in of like, should I be doing this? Other companies are doing better than me. Like, are you comparing yourself? And how do you manage kind of that imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's like two sides to the coin. I tell a lot of people this too. Like, I have to be so like laser focused, like kind of like tunnel vision in order to not get like that. Cause it would be so easy for me to get like that. Oh, so and so just launched this electrolyte and it already sold out. Or so and so, just promoted this one. Like, why couldn't she promote mine instead? Or, I mean, there's 1,000 things I could think about when it comes to like a product like this. But if I let myself go down, spiral and go down that rabbit hole, then I wouldn't be doing it. So I have to just stay so laser focused and like self-motivated to continue to just remind myself, like, this is an amazing product. I created it with purpose. I have so much intention and drive for this product to help people. I know it helps people. Like, you have to repeat the facts. This is also something I learned in therapy so much. It comes from therapy. But like, you have to state the facts so you don't spiral. So like, this product is amazing. I know it helps people. People have told me it helps them. Like, there isn't anything like this exact formula on the market. Like, it has only been 5 months. Like, it was created from scratch. Like, I just keep going there. And then that helps me not to just go down that like imposter syndrome rabbit hole. Because again, like, if you do that, you'll never get there. I would never be able to do it. So I have to just stay really focused. It's good to have like healthy competition and like goals. Like, yes, of course I want to be as big as Element. Who wouldn't want that, But like, that's not my goal. My goal is to take it one day at a time and continue to make products and see what happens. Like, I can't sit here and like compare myself to that company because that's obviously completely different than where I'm at right now as well.
And it's like a lot of those companies also were in your position at one time.
Yes, everyone started somewhere.
Yeah, and maybe, like you said, they got a big influencer, they blew up, whatever it is. But there's also companies that did that and then they didn't last. And so
Right.
it's like you have to be comparing yourself really only to yourself and what you did the day before to allow yourself really to up level. And it's like comparing yourself to someone who's maybe years or sales away that can't even possibly achieve yet
Mhm.
is not fair to yourself
No.
and not giving yourself credit. I love that you say you focus on the facts. My therapist tells me
Really?
that too. It's much harder for me. I don't.
Yes.
I actually just did like a session with my business coach. I was really talking about networking, and I was like, I just hate networking sometimes. Like, I just feel like I get such bad imposter syndrome. I go into it, I'm not confident with what I do. And a lot of it stems for me that like I didn't get a degree in social media or marketing. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the expert. Like, so and so has a degree. And so I have to always like, we go through this whole thing of like, okay, but at the end of the day, for me and my service, anyone could use social media. Like, you could learn social media, you could do it. they're buying me. They're buying the experience I'm going to give them, the values that I have, the authenticity that I bring to the table. That's why they want to work with
Yep.
me, because at the end of the day, there's 7 million different social media people that they could hire. And so I really feel that I have to funnel not only the facts, but like the why behind what I bring to the table in my business. And same thing for you, right? Like your all the health and wellness things that you've learned, the certifications led up to this product being the way it is, that maybe those other companies don't have. And that is a huge reason to buy from you and Nate Bonnier.
I think, I don't know if it was like Melissa Wood or someone said it. Oh,
love her.
I know, me too. I met her one time and I cried. But yeah, someone said it, and I think it was her, and she said, no one is you. And that is the power that you have. So like the reason people are going to choose to work with you versus another social media agency or person is because there is no one like you. So that connection, like that's why people buy a product too, I've learned, is they connect with the founders. Sometimes they connect with the mission, they connect with the face behind the screen. And so that's really the driving factor. Like no one is me, no one is you. And that's, you know, why you'll get clients. That's why people will buy it, because there isn't anyone like us. And so that's kind of like something that I also remember, and that's like pretty powerful, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the person and it's the story.
Yes.
And that's why I started following you, connected like right before you did this. So I
I
saw
know.
like
I
the
was
whole
like, gosh, I'm so
process.
sorry. Yeah. I never emailed her
No,
back. And I
no,
was like, I'm
you,
so glad she asked.
oh my gosh, never apologize. You were in all the things. But for me personally, like it was really cool to watch it all happen, because it becomes part of your story and the brand. And I think I could imagine someone who's like a new mom, also looking for electrolyte product, if they really heard your story, if they really heard like what you're trying to build, I feel they'd be more inclined to buy it from a marketing standpoint, because they're like, wow, like that's someone I connect with. I
Right.
get it. And then in the sense of what the product is, it's going to help me have energy and make it through my day
Yeah.
as a mom.
Right. Yeah. The connection piece is so big. And that's why I bought stuff before, is because I connect with whoever, you know, is promoting that, or the founder or whatever it might be. So yeah, I really appreciate that. That series was fun.
It's definitely so difficult building a business. I think like I said, I can't even imagine mom, new business, all the things that you've done. If you could give someone who's in the in-between advice, whether that be maybe a new mom, or maybe they're in an in-between phase of their business, maybe it's even, you know, a new mom trying to return to work and return to their business, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think I've talked about it a little bit, like throughout this entire time we've chatted, but I would say, like, don't let anyone tell you can't do it. So whatever it might be, like whether you're starting a business, like whether you want to start a business, you know, whether you want to figure out how to juggle that as a new mom and start a business, like whatever it may be, don't let anyone tell you can't. So you have to stay like so fiercely focused on your goals, and no matter what, like do not stop. Like do not give up on it. You're going to have times that you want to give up, and those are the moments that are really going to refine you and push you through. And that's where the real growth happens. So, you know, if I found out I was pregnant and was like, shoot, there's no way I can do this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to stay forward. Then we were going to launch 4 months before the baby was due. I was like, oh, it's going to be so perfect. That's never how life works, you know? And then it was like August, and I was like, oh, that's right before the baby, but that'll be okay. And then it was like, oh, it's going to launch in September. I'm like, that's exactly what I did not want to happen. And that's exactly what happened. And it was fine. Like, yes, it was a lot, but it was okay. We got through it. We moved on. Like, we're good. So I would say, like, the moments that you feel like giving up, like, welcome those. And like, those are those refining moments that will help you push through. And I would say, like, even as a mom, like, I remember like the first few months, and don't want to get too into this, but you know, those early mornings, and like you're in the thick of it, like when your baby's, you know, a brand new baby and you're up all night, like those are the moments that like you're gonna miss later. So like also don't miss those moments. So just like, you know, I think I wish I remembered more of like what it was like that first month with the baby and the business, and like how hectic it was and how out of it I felt. But like those are the moments that really define me, who I am now, and like made me so much stronger. And I also feel so much more confident as a mom now and as a business owner, I would say, for what I went through. So I think like just remembering that and holding on to that truth and that statement that, you know, those moments will make you grow. And, you know, those are the moments you'll look back on and you'll miss eventually. And like it'll be a story to tell. Like that's part of your brand, that's part of your story, that's part of your life. So I think those moments are really important to grow.
Absolutely. You just have to trust that whatever's made for you will come for
Exactly.
you. And if even in the hard times, like if you just trust that and do what you can do, like you said, get up today. I'm going to do what I can accomplish today
Mm.
and everything else will come. And that's so hard in the moment. But if you can, I think it makes it a lot easier because it's just this will play out. We'll play to God's plan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
of
coming on the
course.
podcast.
That was
I'm
so fun.
so happy that we finally got to do this because obviously it was a long time coming. All in good timing. I would love for you to share with my where to follow you personally, where to follow Flurrie, and then obviously where to shop.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on Markham Method on my Instagram. It's at Markham Method. And then my Flurrie Instagram is Flurrie Wellness. So it's Flurie. And then you can shop at flurriewellness.com. And then if you guys want 20% off, just send me a DM and I'll send you, if you listen to the podcast, say you're from the podcast, and I'll send you guys a discount code.
Love it. I will make sure to put all of her information too in the show notes so that you guys have it. Thank you so much for listening to the In Between podcast, and make sure you follow at In Between Combos on Instagram. Thanks, guys.